Welcome, everyone, to the Lyfebulb seminar focused on transplantation. And today's topic is a novel one, but it's one that is going to be coming back for the next few weeks. We are introducing our community managers. And today we're starting with Jeanmarie. I'm Karin Heemberger, and I'm the CEO of Lyfebulb. And I'm a fellow transplant recipient. And Jeanmarie is going to talk about her journey with transplant, but also about who is Jeanmarie and why you joined Lyfebulb's TransplantLyfe as a community manager. So welcome, Jeanmarie. It's truly a privilege. We talk often, but not always live in front of an audience. So, but I feel very comfortable having this conversation. So, would love to just hear a little bit about your transplant journey and how that came about.
Okay, awesome. I'm Jeanmarie. Thank you for having me. I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 16. I was listed for a kidney transplant when I was 22. During that time, my dad was getting tested to be an organ donor for me. So I was finally transplanted when I was 24. And so it's been 18 years since I've had this kidney. And there's been so many ups and downs. Some days, sometimes I feel great, sometimes I don't. It's been quite a journey.
Thank you. And I think it's important. There are two things about what you said, or three things, I guess, that I really captured me. One was your original disease, lupus, right? And that's a condition that maybe not everyone knows so much about. So maybe just a little bit about lupus. And then I think number two, this fantastic, altruistic thing your dad did. I mean, being a living donor, how has that impacted your relationship? And then I think the third, and we can talk about that, you said the ups and downs, that is, of course, the medical history, but it's also everything else. So maybe we start a little bit about lupus, because I do think it's important for people to understand what are some of the causes for kidney failure and thus transplantation.
Yeah, absolutely. So lupus is an autoimmune disease. There are three major kinds. There's discoid and systemic lupus, and then neonatal lupus. Systemic lupus will affect your organs. So it can affect any organ at any time, your heart, your kidneys. And then discoid lupus generally attacks, or it'll show on the face. And that's kind of where lupus gets its name from, because it shows as like a butterfly rash or a wolf, like a rash, like a wolf. So I don't have that one. I have the systemic lupus. And so that affected both of my kidneys. They became really, really small, very tiny. That's how I just couldn't keep up with, school was starting to become more difficult. I was becoming really sleepy. I couldn't keep up with swim practices anymore. And that's how my mom took me to the doctors, and they did a series of tests and found that I had lupus. And my kidneys were at 16, the first kidney had already failed. And and so it took from 16 to about 22 for the second one to fail. I fortunately did not start dialysis. I kind of just I dived into work and dived into college and just was pretending it didn't really exist and trying to keep up with everybody else. So I worked through all of the swelling and things that I probably should have paid more attention to.
Well,
you in my early 20s.
You were fortunate that you got the kidney before it got so bad that you required dialysis, which is what we call preemptive transplantation, which is recommended, right? That is what is better for your body. It's just not everyone has that opportunity, but clearly that was something that your physicians and your family discussed, and that's really great. So let's go back to your living donor, but first talk about, right now, Jeanmarie, you're active as a community manager on TransplantLyfe. So, what do you do? What does that mean to you personally? Because it can mean different things. I mean, I got into advocacy from the basis of science, right? I'm a medical doctor. I wanted to change the way drugs are being not manufactured, but originated. And, I want to address more maybe quality of life issues and so on. But everyone comes into this from a different angle. And, what drove you to be part of an organization focused on patients?
Well, it actually didn't come to my mind right away. It's so I'm still a little new at all of this.
Yep.
I was just I didn't realize that I had anything to offer to anyone in the community. And because when I first started the journey, social media didn't exist, the internet was just starting. So I kind of just went out, just kind of did it all on my own. So as I started talking to people, I started talking to you, I noticed a need for people had a lot of questions. It is this very scary time. And it's something that lasts forever. And so there's a lot of adjustments, especially if you just get diagnosed, because transplant is a treatment and not a cure. And I think a lot of people kind of go about thinking that we look good, so we must feel just fine. And it's hard for people to get across to their loved ones about how it really feels to have a transplant. There's so many different aspects, from mental health, medications, doctor appointments, trying to live a life as well.
So you said so many important things, Jeanmarie. I really, really appreciate that. First, I got to say, the fact that you didn't believe that you had a voice or that your voice was needed, I think that's unfortunately true for many patients. And, one of the reasons we wanted to bring TransplantLyfe to life was really for patients to be able to show their voice and to share their voice and to do it in a forum where we together could, augment that voice and have a uniform one. So I truly, applaud you for taking that step, because it's not easy. It's not easy to be in your own world and then go out and say, okay, I'm going to have an impact on others. And I hope that you realize that you do have an impact, and just hearing your story is important to so many.
I've really realized that through working with Lyfebulb, and also I'm a mentor with remend.org. And I've just sharing my story and listening to other people say how important it is for them to hear what other people are going through, that it's so similar to what they're going through. I was like, you know what? I guess I'm going to do this all the way.
It's fantastic, and thank you for that. The other thing you said, I think what's important, was that transplant is a treatment, it's not a cure. And even beyond that, transplant is a treatment, it's not truly a disease, right? Because we talk about TransplantLyfe, we talk about, us being transplant patients, but we all come from various backgrounds. You have lupus, I have type 1 diabetes, other people have other diseases, and that all brings us together through the treatment of transplant, which is a procedure, surgical procedure, it's medication, as you said, lifelong. And it's all the different mental, effects that this has on you. If you were to, just portion them out, what do you think you handled? I wouldn't want to rank it, but if you talk about the mental, the physical, and maybe the social portion of it, what do you think is the most difficult as a patient?
Wow. I'm gonna say the mental aspect of it, because I feel like a lot of social part of it, I'm faking it to make it. A lot of times I just kind of act just fine to my friends or family so they don't worry. But which probably ultimately takes the mental toll harder on myself. Balancing doctor appointments, balancing just generally feeling well, diet, exercise, on top of taking our transplant medications, on top of managing lupus as its own entity. And so there's just it's just very complex, I feel like. And so I feel like it's a big juggling act mentally to I can easily have days where I don't do anything. I don't get out of bed. I don't I'm good at home. So it does take a lot to mentally to get out there sometimes and join the public.
And when you do push yourself to go out there, when you feel like today is not a day, today is a day I really should take a break. I mean, does it make you feel good to push yourself, or do you think that maybe sometimes you should take a day and just rest?
I have to listen to myself. I have to listen to what I really need. And I kind of actually, I'll look at my calendar, just kind of plan out a day that I can just take for myself. Maybe do some yoga, some meditation, a day at the beach, just things that kind of bring me back to me.
Yeah.
And before I can feel like I can participate in a positive way, I feel like to society, I guess, in a dramatic way.
That's good, and I think that's good to recognize that in yourself, and also the fact that you feel that you have a self that is outside of your disease. You know,
Yeah.
I think that you were 16 when you were diagnosed, so you had kind of built, a personality, something that was Jeanmarie outside of lupus. I was diagnosed the same as you, 16. So,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I think the time of diagnosis is truly important for how you as a person perceive yourself. Are you a person with disease, or are you someone who also has something else? And you have to work on that always, right? Always. What makes you kind of happy? I know photography. I want to hear about your photography. That's
Yes,
something.
I love taking pictures. I love photography. I love spending time editing. That's just when I listen to music, either meditation music or, it's just like a me time, just to kind of sit with my memories, because
Mhm.
I've always liked taking photos, but as I would spend time in the hospital, 3 months, 6 months, all this blocks of time, I could go through my photos and just remember the moments that I was having for myself. So it really started as in a kind of a way of like a journal for
Yeah.
myself. Um, and it it helped me go, you know what? I got to get back to that place. I got to get back. I got to get out of this hospital. I got to start feeling better. And so it was just, I don't have children. I have nieces and nephews though, but I didn't, that's kind of my thing to kind of keep pushing myself to have these special moments. I really, really deeply love the moment. So that's kind of where the photography came from. So when I do post a photo, it's generally a pretty private, or it's a moment that I really had a lot of feeling about.
That's really very important, because I follow you and you put out these beautiful pictures on Instagram, and I see them, and you can take them for a picture, you can take them for what they are, but they're more than that. They're actually a memory for you that was very impactful. And I understand that completely, that you can go back in time and you can kind of relive that moment.
Yeah,
Do you also take pictures of difficult moments, where you were in the hospital, and if not, do those moments come back to you as well? And that's a hard question.
it is. I when I first started like in the hospital, social media didn't exist. So it's the last thing on my mind to snap a photo of something happening at the hospital.
Right.
As I now I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll document, I'll take a couple photos to document this. And then I decide later if I'm going to share that, because I'm just still not 100% comfortable always sharing my moments of my moments that are low moments. On one-on-one situation, totally
Yeah.
fine with sharing my moments. But when it comes to social media, I just really try to keep it positive. And so a lot of times people probably don't know what's going on with me on a day-to-day basis. And
And
I
that
don't
is,
want people to think of that of me as this sick person either. You know, I it's really hard for me to have that out there like that. Because if something, I want to be remembered as this happy person walking around the beach and going on vacations and helping my friends and my family when they need it, and that's what I want.
and
I
that's what you
remember.
choose. That's what you choose. But I
Yes.
do think it's important to point out that when you speak one-on-one, and you and I've done that, like I've spoken to you one-on-one, and you've done that with other, transplant patients in your role as a mentor, you do share. You do share when you have gone through something. And I think that is a moment of connection. And I understand totally how you want to, show your life as constructive and positive, but then in a one-on-one setting you can go deeper and you can say, this is also what I'm about, and this is what I've gone through, and this is how I handled it. So it is complex because of social media now. And I would argue that in TransplantLyfe you can do both, right? Because with TransplantLyfe you can share in the forum, broadly, but you can connect one-on-one in the one-on-one, find a friend, and there you can have those maybe conversations that you don't want to have in the broader forum.
Yes, and as I share more, like in the forum, I'm becoming more and more comfortable with sharing even just my story too on social media, because every time I do, somebody, multiple people will come to me and say, "Thank you so much for sharing that." I just had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and he said that it was a breath of fresh air to see people going through the exact same things that he has gone through. And so to me, those statements are really impactful. And as I've gone through this journey for 18 years, I just feel like now this is my time to share my experiences with people, no matter how difficult they might be.
And maybe that is a little bit of a difference between Instagram and TransplantLyfe, because Instagram is a broad audience.
Right.
It's people who are into cooking, into fashion, into whatever, and they see your photography and they say, wow, that's beautiful photography. And your recent trip, I mean, really was incredible, the one to Italy. But then on TransplantLyfe, everyone is a peer. Everyone has gone through or is going to go through, something similar. So there one can feel, I at least can feel a little bit more, open, because I know I'm not judged, or because we're all together in this. So maybe that
Yeah.
is a slight difference for you, at least, because other people are very open on also public, social media.
Yes. I mean, it's hard to, I mean, yeah, they have to, it's nice to, if I say I'm not feeling well on Instagram, I will get messages about boosting my immune system. And so we know that that's not an option when you have a transplant. And it's hard to explain that to people. So it's nice to put something like that in the TransplantLyfe forum, because everyone understands how we have to just kind of let it ride out.
I mean, I had exactly the same thing happen to me yesterday. It was World Diabetes Day, and I put out a post, and someone said, well, you just need to lose weight, and you'll get rid of your diabetes. I was saying, okay, so that's not really type 1 diabetes, and that's not the issue right here. But it is, it can be hurtful, of course. And it can just feel that people are ignorant. I think people in general want to help, right?
Yeah.
People want to be helpful. And I think people, know what they know, and it's our job, as advocates, to inform. And I think one of our, members here who posted on in the chat, Alicia, she was saying, I take pictures because I want to show it my way. I want to be in control of what the story is. And that I totally appreciate. And I do the same. I mean, in my first transplant, I showed nothing. I was very careful. In my recent transplant, I didn't show it while it was happening, but I showed it when it was done. And I wanted my story to be told. So I think that we all have to figure out a way how we're comfortable. And if we decide that we want to help others, we got to figure out what we can do best, and where it feels genuine.
Yes, yeah, I agree. And I'm becoming more and more comfortable sharing my story to, people saying, wow, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. Or, talking about certain medications that I don't have to explain what they are is actually really nice. It's actually been a very nice therapeutic situation for me.
That's great. That's exactly what we want to hear, right? What do you now at your kind of stage, just so people get to know you, if you are comfortable sharing, now 18 years in with the transplant, and what are some of the issues you're going through, and how are you handling them?
So now my GFR is at 17%. I just have been listed for a new kidney. I am currently, as my status is inactive until I need to start dialysis or I get down to 10%.
Yep.
But I do have someone who is currently being tested to be a living donor. So I've been extremely fortunate that I have such amazing family and friends that support me, even when I feel like I'm a brat and I don't feel supported. But everyone comes together when I really need them to. And so it's been very heartfelt, a lot of emotions going through this. But otherwise, like, I feel pretty good, even though my GFR is a little low. I do have my days that I'm a little more tired, but just kind of going through the motions and keeping up on my diet and keeping up on my exercise and keep taking my meds and just kind of keep going.
That's great. That's great. It's fantastic. Congratulations to having, this process now starting, and having someone who can potentially give you a kidney. And this matching process, I'm sure the evaluation process is now starting with both on your side and the donor side. And that's a little bit of an intense process that, everyone who has had a transplant knows. I just went through it. So I know, but the emotional part of it is probably what we don't address as much, right? This whole concept of, is this going to work? Am I going to get the transplant? Am I going to make it until I need, so I don't need to go on dialysis, or I'm gonna need a bridge to transplant. So all this, I'm sure, is going through your head.
Yes. And I have an antibody problem. So my rejection is antibody.
What that is, just because not everyone knows what that is.
So I have antibody-mediated rejection, and it's a little more tough to get another kidney with that. I'm not sure any of the other organs, but they tried to do plasmapheresis on this latest go around, but so plasmapheresis, they take all the plasma from your body, put in man-made plasma, and hope that the antibodies go away. It's kind of, I guess, the best way I could explain it. And it didn't work. Most of the antibodies came from blood transfusions over the years. I had a virus that I couldn't get rid of, and it affected my bone marrow. So I was having to get blood transfusions for years, for every 2 weeks. So that's where a lot of the issues came from with that. So I decided not to participate in a desensitization program, because the kidney does not last as long, from what I've heard. So I'm just going to try and give it the old go, and hope that I do find a kidney that will work with all of the antibodies.
Yeah. And just to kind of explain a little more, there is now a program at, I believe NYU has a clinical trial on desensitization on those who are highly sensitized, and it's a product from a company actually out of Sweden that is being tested on people. So we would hope that eventually that gets approved, and therefore people like you and others who are sensitized have more opportunities to get another kidney, because it is typical, you know, after one transplant and the blood transfusions, maybe a pregnancy, there are more antibodies, and that makes it more difficult to be matched. But we hope that's going to go well, and you do have a little bit of margin. You know, you can stay at 17 for a while. As you said, 10% is when you may have to go on dialysis or you know, get placed on the list. But it's all individual as well. I mean, you just went on this fantastic trip,
and that's one of the hardest parts, you know, because we really just don't know. You know, we just kind of living our life and having a great time, and then all of a sudden things just change. And for me, that's probably the hardest thing for transplant, because I'm a Capricorn, so I like planning, and I just can't plan too much when, you know, everything's so unexpected.
Yeah. I think that's the problem. I mean, I'm not a Capricorn, but I like to be in control. And if you're not in control of your health, that's one of the most vulnerable places you can be. And you kind of have to, and that's where meditation, yoga, you know, whatever you need to do, photography for you, for me, maybe, you know, I'm not sure, but, you know, get myself out of my mind frame, and just take it out of that almost locked environment where you're getting stressed about things that may not be the ones that you're really stressed about, but right. That's one question we're gonna have to finish soon, but you know, one question to you, have you noticed, you were mentioning that your environment, your family, they're so good in crisis, but when everything is good, you know, do you feel that they change, or you know, how are you dealing with the relationships that you have in your life right now? I would say both old and new, because that can be complex with a condition that has been going on for so long.
Very complex. I mean, every family and every relationship has issues without having a transplant or a chronic illness. And so I do notice that they change a lot. My family especially will go from one extreme to the other. They will either treat me like I'm made of glass, or they treat me like I'm made of steel. And sometimes it's the opposite of when I need that too. So it's taken me a lot of years having the transplant to be okay with whatever they're feeling as well. It took me, I would say, probably till like year 12 till I could really understand that they're going through emotions. They have their own lives too. And it probably comes with age, because I was pretty young going through all of these emotions and family, and same with my friends. You know, again, they'll be there for me when I need them, and then when I seem fine, they generally leave me alone. So I have to go seek them out too. That's another thing, is, you know, I'll have to cancel engagements and not feeling well, and then I stop kind of getting invited to places. And so it's such a weird thing. And so I always like, hey, don't forget about me, invite me. I still want to be invited.
To me, that is one of the most difficult parts in a social setting, and I think you identified it, is that you still want to be invited, but then when you decline, you also feel, oh no, I feel so guilty declining or not showing up. And then they may, you know, not invite you, and then you still want to be invited. It's a real conflict. And I sometimes wish, and you know, we had a young woman who actually invented a technology where you could essentially share your feelings in a more of a, you know, objective way, because this whole conversation about why you can't join or why you want to join is complicated, especially when you're not feeling well. But if you could just send off a message, almost like this code word of some sort, you know, I don't know if it helps, because it's just you know, a surrogate for what you actually are trying to say.
Yeah, because I mean, even then, generally when I feel bad, I want to avoid telling people that I feel bad.
Yeah.
I also just want them to know sometimes, because I'm so exhausted that I don't know how to tell them. So and I think that's really what, especially in the last, I would say, we'll say a solid 6 years, I've been really sitting with my emotions from transplant. And, you know, I slowed down and really just kind of sat with everything. And that's why I really realized how complex it really is. I think before I was just like doing life and just
Yeah.
ignoring everything, you know, just winging it. And now I'm just really sitting with everything. And I'm like, you know what? This is really hard. Like, this life that I have that I didn't ask for is really hard sometimes. And, you know, I was like, people really need to come, we need to come together and help each other through it. And
I agree. I totally agree. So Jeanmarie, a final, I would say, as you want to portray it, an optimistic, something to the community, our new members and new members of the transplant world, you know, what's your piece of advice to them on how to go through this journey with hopefully a smile, at least part of the time?
you have to be your own advocate, and you have to learn as much as you possibly can and take care of yourself. We don't know how long the transplant is going to last. So diet and exercise, and just really take care of yourself, as whatever you need, the mental health, the anything, asking questions to your doctors and taking your medications. And really, it's just being your own advocate, I would have to say, is like my biggest lesson that I've learned over the years.
That's great advice. Be your own advocate, take care of yourself, and don't hesitate to ask questions. No
Yep.
question is dumb. No question is, you know, too much. And I also think what you're saying is, you know, reach out to people, and don't hesitate to ask for help. Not just ask questions, but, you know, ask for help when you need it. Because people they can't read your mind. So
No, they can't. And they're going through their own stuff too. You know, they're living their life with their own emotions and their own stuff. So sometimes they just don't know.
thank you. You look absolutely beautiful, and I really appreciate this conversation. So I look forward to continuing. And again, Jeanmarie, one of our community managers, and Jeanmarie is part of TransplantLyfe, so you can reach out to her there, and also, of course, on social media handles. But again, part of the Lyfebulb TransplantLyfe team, and we will be introducing other community managers over the next few weeks. Thank you, and I hope to see all of you soon again. Bye-bye now.